Our next story comes from China. It's about their billionaires, the entrepreneurs who helped fuel the country's growth. China proudly claims to be a communist country, but the ground reality is quite different. Here is a report by the state mouthpiece, citing the 50, 60, 70, 80 combination. China's private sector apparently provides 50% of the country's tax revenue, 60% of its GDP, 70% of its technological innovation, and 80% of its urban employment. The private sector does all of this, and this is acknowledged by the Chinese government. So China is a communist country with a capitalist C. Beijing understands that its entrepreneurs are a flock of golden geese. They're the ones who propel the country's economic growth. The 50, 60, 70, 80 formula proves it. So then why is China so keen to cook these geese? Here's a report from this week about a boutique investment firm called Renaissance Holdings. The company has crumbled. This week, its share price has collapsed by up to 73% at one point. That was the collapse, 73%. Finally, it ended up losing 2/3 of its value. Now, Renaissance was one of China's biggest investment banks. It once brokered mega mergers and stellar IPOs. So then why did it tank? Well, because Beijing got involved. Last February, the Chinese government picked up the company's founder, Bao Fan. He went missing for a few days. It was later revealed that he was under investigation. When this happened, his company's shares were frozen. They could not be traded. Bao Fan resigned this February, about a year after his abduction. Renaissance has spent months trying to get its finances in order, and they only published their statement last week, the financial results for 2022 and 2023. That's when China allowed it to resume trading. And that is why the shares crashed on Monday. Will Beijing mind the collapse? Probably not, because it already took its cut. Last year, the company was forced to make a payment of about $11 million. Why? Because the Chinese authorities said so. That's it, $11 million. Beijing butchered the firm and kept a small cut for itself. And this story has become all too familiar in China. Let's look at another case, the story of Sun Dawu, a 70-year-old billionaire who made his fortune in pig farming. He has been in jail since 2021. He was convicted on charges of picking quarrels, inciting crowds to attack state agencies, and unlawful occupation of agricultural land. Picking quarrels with whom? The Chinese Communist Party. Sun was quite vocal in his criticism, and he initially managed to survive despite this. He was out and about for years, through various regimes. But then came China's great golden goose slayer, Xi Jinping, and now Sun is among the geese who've been cooked. His case is all too common. Any Chinese billionaire who speaks up gets arrested and imprisoned. Some of them just disappear for a while and come back as shadows of their former selves. Look at Jack Ma, the founder of the Alibaba Group, perhaps China's most famous entrepreneur. In October 2020, Jack Ma criticized China's financial system, and soon after that, he went missing. He turned up only 3 months later. Jack Ma's Alibaba Group was fined. It had to pay $2.8 billion to the government. And Ma has kept a low profile since, which makes sense. He's actually one of the lucky ones. He isn't rotting in jail. Sun Dawu is serving an 18-year sentence. He's 70 years old, 18-year sentence. The authorities basically want him to die in a dungeon. It's the same case with Ren Zhixiang, a former real estate tycoon. Ren criticized China's handling of the Wuhan virus pandemic. He was suddenly found guilty of corruption and sentenced to 18 years in prison. The same sentence was handed to Wu Xiaohui, the former chairman of an insurance group, 18 years in prison, apparently for embezzlement. All these golden geese who became famous or who criticized the government, they all end up missing or in prison. What does this tell you? Whenever a Chinese entrepreneur makes it big, they become a target. No matter how important China's private sector is, it is always going to be a scapegoat. Beijing likes to pretend that it is business friendly, but there's a reason why foreign companies are looking to get out. They know that doing business in China is risky. If China's homegrown businesses are not safe, what hope do foreign ones have? Beijing claims it's a crackdown on corruption. But what it looks like is a crackdown on dissent. Anyone who's vocal, anyone popular enough to have reach, Xi Jinping has them removed. And he confiscates their wealth while he's at it. This is not restricted to the oligarchs, though. You have actors who go missing, tennis players, and of course the occasional foreign minister. Some of them eventually turn up again, but as hollow shells. So is everyone on the list really corrupt, or did they just happen to upset China's modern emperor? Between justice and Xi's ego, we all know what will ultimately prevail.